All right, cool. We'll start with the guys on the floor.
Jake, start with the red card.
Yeah. Doesn't make any difference, does it? So, yeah, I mean, I just said to the media downstairs in the interview, doesn't matter what I think. Just bottom line is we were good enough to win that game. Should never have got down to that situation in the first place and turned the ball over a couple of times in their 22. Lost a couple of lineouts, turned the ball over at lineout time, lost it in the maul. And then when they got into our 22, they finished. So it is. I mean, it's tough to win away from home. It's tough to win on the road. That's why they call them bonus points. That's why that's why you got to work so hard. And Scarlets are not, as I said, Scarlets are not, I said before the game, they're not as poor as what everyone makes them out to be. They might have struggled last year with lots of injuries. They've signed some props, got some big back rowers now, and they've always had good backs. So it was always going to be a tough game. But again, I say at certain points in the game, I think we should have finished them off, and we didn't.
19-7 at half time, maybe 19-10.
Yeah, that's big.
When you dominated.
Correct. 19-7.
Yeah.
That's why they took the 3, I think, because they felt like 19-10 felt like they were back in the game. And we had them there because 2 guys going to that breakdown. It's a breakdown that's 40 yards away from our try line. It wasn't like we were under pressure and there was about 45 seconds left. So we didn't really need to bite into that breakdown. But I got to give credit. I mean, they played well this whole season, played well against Benetton, played well against Cardiff twice, were unlucky to lose the first one. So they'll be better. They'll be better.
They stayed in the fight, didn't they? In terms of
they did. I just said to someone now walking through that, didn't go away. Kept fighting. Some harder than others. Some fell down quicker, but they kept fighting.
Final one for me. I'll go back. You just had a guy who's had a red card rescinded.
Yeah. Well, I seem to be spending most of my week at judiciary meetings, which is not helping the coaching.
Yeah, but that could happen again. But maybe who knows?
No, it will happen again. I mean, when you read, you go straight into the. I can't see that. I can't see that they will before. There's always, as I said, they're not going to change their mind between now and when we need to meet. So. But, there's so much debate now. There's red cards for 20 minutes. There's head contact. There's gum guards that are coming out. There's, So, I mean, you've got to find the middle road. You get players who lie down all the time. If they get knocked, then you've got a risk of losing them next week with the HIA. And I think that's what makes it so difficult. We must be very strict on head contact. We must be. I mean, I've got sons that played rugby. You don't want a situation where you neglect that. But it's a difficult one because it is a game where people run hard at each other, and there's such a little time for getting it right and getting it wrong. But I'm not the guy that makes all that. I can only control the things, and it is difficult every week. When this week, I mean, I saw things tonight that would have been fine last week, and I saw things tonight that wouldn't have been good enough last week. So that is why I suppose it's so frustrating for a coach. I said after this hearing that one thing that I'm really chuffed about is that URC have grown, and it's not guilty. And if you challenge us, it's more guilty. There's a genuine understanding that because we're so aware of those things, there will be a realistic chance if you have a case to actually present it. Thank you.
Okay, online.
Oh, sorry, you were doing to ask? Oh, sorry.
Jake, thanks for the opportunity. You won everything except for the referee's heart and the scoreboard. How big part did you think that the weather play in you losing the match?
Yeah, Carl, it's interesting. I've got some information from locals here that the wind comes as you jog out from the left to the right-hand side. I was tempted to take. We won the toss. Tempted to take side, and because I heard the rain was going to come and the wind was, and somehow I just thought that we might be lucky that we might not. By the back end of the game, that won't be an influence. But there's, it just made it more difficult when we were going into the wind and into the rain, just to be a bit more accurate. So I it's like cricket. Sometimes you win the toss and You take a chance. If we hadn't got that weather in the back end or the middle part of the game, maybe, things would have been different. But it turned out that playing into that rain and wind for a short period of time became difficult for us.
In hindsight, would you say that the number of changes you made also played a big role in your loss tonight?
I've got to make those changes, Cole. I mean, I've only got, I've got a certain number of players. Number one. Number two is there's a restriction on players who need rest. And I've got to find 8 weeks between now and the end of April for players to have time off. So I can't get to a situation where we have 8 weeks left of the season and then I give everyone time off. So there's nothing else I could do. That team was the one that's available. That's the team that's trained for the week. And inevitably, as I said to you, beginning of the season, we're going to have to, specifically the Bulls, we're going to have to change our team, keep them fresh, make sure that we got players that feel that there's hope for them to play. Can't go through the same season or the same, with the same team game after game after game. So it's a learning thing. I mean, today's lineup, without having Ruan Nokia there, we were a bit frail at times. But that's the only way the players who are calling the line out, who are under that pressure in rain, are going to learn that skill, is to be actually in that situation.
Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Jake, it's Ashfaq here. As much as the guys didn't help themselves with those line-out areas, knock-ons, slip tackles, and all of that, when you get scrum dominance and you don't get the reward, or the breakdown is called a certain way when you feel you've got the rights to the ball, that also obviously makes life difficult, doesn't it?
Well, it ages coaches, Ashfaq. That's what it does. That's why when you start coaching, you have hair and you're young, and when you leave, you look like you've been driving on a dirt road. But yeah, that is. I mean, there's no use. You guys have been in this long time enough. I mean, I'm not going to take the bait and say we were good enough. We should have won. We could have won. We had all the opportunities. And we played against a team like Scarlets that never went away. They stayed in the fight. And they're not going to be an easy team to beat. I mean, I've got no doubt in my mind the recruiting they've done, the balance of their squad. They're not going to be a team that you can just arrive at Park to Scarlets and get a win.
I know obviously the rain played a role in the guys going a bit tighter in the second half. They were more forward runners and that kind of thing. But do you think you could have, like you did in the first half, maybe play with a bit more width in the second? Because when Kirtley and Kanan were on the ball, it was devastating and we're making good ground.
I actually think it was the other way around. We played too much. There was a lineup. We went off the top and Harold knocked it on. We should have maybe tried to squeeze him a little bit more. So the conditions were like that, and we probably didn't adapt to those conditions for that block of time. We started well when it was nice and dry and no wind, and as the weather sort of changed, we probably kept thinking that we were probably seduced by the fact that we played so well with the ball in our hand that we probably at times played too much.
Okay, thanks.
Jake Rinaldi, yeah. Just on the red card, I just want to check with you. I mean, do you think the players' reactions after something happens is starting to have a major effect on the decisions the refs make compared to, let's say, a year or two ago? Because, I mean, I've replayed that clip, and I don't know if that would have been a red card a year or two ago, but now with the players' reactions and they kind of trying to get more out of a situation than it was back then. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
My thoughts are I will never, ever coach a player to lie down and try and influence a decision. That's my thoughts. I've been coaching a long time, and I would never, ever encourage anything like that. So,
Jake, hi, Brendan. Yeah, I know you're not going to talk about the red card, but there were a couple other incidents. Kubus Visa was hit with the shoulder charge. Butter went down, was hit in the head as well. That was ignored. Just the consistency probably wasn't there. And I mean, Zach also took one to the face. It seemed to be also ignored by the officials. Are you going to be preparing a similar case to David's one when you guys go to the disciplinary this week?
Well, look, I'm not a similar case. I mean, bottom line is, I don't think that was a red card. I think there were circumstances which I'm obviously not going to share with you, but and I said it before, Brendan. I think when there's someone that is malicious and it's off the ball and it's genuinely a red card, then we must never take that away from rugby. I mean, there's no place in rugby for that. But you know, there is things that happen in rugby that aren't necessary. I mean, the red card was put there for that exact reason. It was because it's dirty and because it's malicious and because it's premeditated and because it's red card wasn't ever put in place for rugby incidents to take place. I mean, that's why I said, if we start with a thing, is it a rugby incident? Yes. Well, then it becomes very different to the outcome. If you start, is it foul play, which is the way that it's done, well, then you're going to get a different outcome. So I said it this week. Someone asked me about the red card 20 minutes. You know, now what will happen is, you'll get an orange card because the orange is closer to red and it's not a yellow. So then what we could do is go, yellow is 10, orange is 15, and red is 20. And I don't think that makes it easier for a referee. I think it makes it more difficult. You know, a red card is simple. It's red. You were out of line, stubbing, it looks unnatural. It's something that stands out, and there's no reason for you to keep that guy on the field. So yeah, that's just it's a late night Friday evening resume of what I'm thinking is going to happen. And but to answer your question, I will look at that, and I will fight for the player, because the one thing you must also understand, and I'm talking a lot, but players don't want red cards next to their name, Brendan. They don't want, when you look at his record, that he's got red cards. And it doesn't matter whether you go, okay, I accept the red, because it never goes away. And so if it's not a red, or you genuinely think you need to protect the player, that's also part of what the coaches, the staff, and I suppose the judiciary need to work on, is that we don't just want to accept that it's a red card and then that poor player over his period of time. Because the next thing that happens when he gets a legitimate red card, they're going to say, well, we can't let you off because you've got a history of red cards. So that is why I think players are also very conscious of not just accepting that it's a red card.
Jake, maybe and just something else on the game. I thought Cobus Visa probably had his best game in the Bulls jersey tonight. He was really dominant on the carry as well.
Outstanding. I think, yeah, there's no doubt. That's why I didn't take him off. I mean, there's just no doubt. He gives us go forward ball. He's dynamic. You know, those kickoffs. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's generally a lock, 4-lock, catching kickoffs and running it back. One stage sliding on the ground, catching the ball. So, yeah, I was very happy with him. Very, very happy with the effort he put in and the, as I said, the 80-minute stint that he had tonight.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.
Jake, just wanted to know, when Akka went off, who was the captain on the field?
Reinhard Ludwig.
Reinhard Ludwig. We were wondering about that. And we were wondering towards the end of the game, maybe there was a bit of a lack of experience in not playing on the right side of the field. You know, should have been kicking and chasing, keeping them in their side of the field. Is there any merit to that?
No, you're 100% right. I mean, it was interesting. Just before halftime, we kicked, and then Cameron gave a penalty away at the breakdown. So I think they got a little bit spooked by the fact that they thought they had done everything right and then conceded 3 points on the halftime whistle. So yeah, it was like that. And, you know, MVA, again, I must explain to you that back end of that game, there weren't too many Springboks on the field. You know, going from what we had last week to how we ended this week, there weren't too many Springboks that were on the field, as we've had in the past. So it was inevitable. It was inevitable that pressure came, and if we were behind the 8 ball, that those things would be tested. And there's no other way in which you can put a player in that situation or prepare that in training other than making sure that he understands how it happens in a game.
I was racking my brain to try and figure out who could be the captain, because I was too young. And you could see it. And yeah, that kick from Henry Emmelman, that probably, what was the idea behind that, if I may ask?
Which kick's that?
The last one that he kicked over the dead ball line.
No, but he actually got, I mean, he to be fair, he got the ball, and he didn't have much time to do anything else. He just ran into touch the one time before that, and he didn't want to give them a line out in the, and those are the margin. That ball stops 2 meters short, and they got it down. It's a goal line dropper. Yeah. So, you know, that is I can't blame him for kicking the ball dead.
Yeah, I was just wondering because I thought maybe if they got the ball, even if it didn't go over the dead level line, they kicked it out and we would have the line out, would have been in the right side of the field. It makes sense.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I don't
Jake.
think I don't think he could kick it out because I think he carried it back in or it was passed back to him.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, thanks, Jake. Sorry for that, for the loss.
Pleasure. No problem. No problem.
Jake, tough loss to take. Again, you guys started like a house on fire, but it must be a concern in the 2 second halves on tour. You scored a combined 6 points. Would you guys be looking to put together an 80-minute performance against Benetton?
We're going to need to. I mean, that's, as I said, now we're going to need to play well against Benetton. Not that we didn't always want to, but I mean, now it's a question of being a little bit more desperate, a little bit more clinical, a little bit more understanding where we got it wrong. And it's not a concern. It's not the word I use. It's a, it's the way, it's a trend that we got to try and change. And, it's something that it's catching us because we start well, put teams under the pump. And then when we've got our hands on their throat, we just let them get out. So, but it's all about learning and it's all about growing. Not many teams, I think, in the URC, and in fact, in the last 4 years, no team has been unbeaten in this competition. So it just shows you how tough it actually is to win week in and week out.
And lastly, any injury concerns after today's game?
No, just a couple of guys who got bumps and bruises. I think, JJ, it's difficult. You know what happens tomorrow morning when they wake up? Then, guys' ankle, is a little bit more serious than you think. But generally, most of the guys, when I look in the change room, there's nothing that I think is something we need to worry about.
Thanks, Jake. Good luck for next week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.